What's going on, everyone? What an awesome end of the weekend. Incredible football games, incredible day in the SEC. It's snaps, late night. Aaron Murray, that is not T-Bob, that is Peter Burns joining me tonight to break down the Georgia-Texas game, and then obviously the Alabama and Tennessee game. We'll touch on that as well. But the Georgia
hold on. Where are you at right now? Because I'm in my hotel room. I did the South Carolina, Oklahoma beatdown earlier today, so I've been chilling in my hotel room. You're all you got a job interview, or where are you doing this show from?
Like my outfit? You like my outfit?
I hope you're going to be a great rental car manager one day.
I know
looks
you like
good.
this. I literally just finished my game. I was on the Florida call versus Kentucky. Florida looks pretty damn good. DJ Lagway. New starting quarterback for Florida, as advertised, the 5-star. But we'll leave that breakdown for another time. I know everyone in here wants to hear about the wild game, Georgia, Texas. But yes, that's why I looked all dapper. Thank you for saying I look good. I appreciate that.
Well, I didn't say that. I just looked at you and said you dressed up. You look like
good.
Georgia on the road in Austin today. That's what you look like right now, my friend.
Speaking of Georgia on the road in Austin, I am and was dead ass wrong. I came into this game saying I thought Texas was the better football team. Texas strength on offense with Sark calling plays and Ewers the way he's played this season and the receivers and the offensive line, that Georgia's defensive backs essentially didn't stand a chance. They haven't impressed. I mean, based on the film, they have not impressed this year. So I was worried that Texas was going to have their way. I was wrong. Georgia showed up and played defense the way that Georgia fans thought they would look, and those DBs look great. So I'm shocked, impressed, all the above. Your initial reaction from the game?
Yeah, I mean, getting Williams back. I mean, it looked like a pissed off Kirby Smart. It looked like the same team in that second half over in T-Town that I don't know what Kirby said to him. Just more not like pissed off, but just more go, hey, I mean, you're better than this. And, like when your parents say you're better than this, like that's really gets you upset. And that's what it felt like from the jump right there. I mean, this was a manhandling. This feels like what Georgia did to Texas is what happened a couple of years ago. Remember when Arkansas played Texas and everybody was saying, oh, they're not ready. They just got dominated. And that's how that game played. And frankly, one of the reasons why I had picked Georgia in this game because I didn't think Texas had been tested yet, right? They didn't play a good offense and they hadn't really played anybody because I think Michigan was overrated, Aaron, coming into this season. But I think the most important thing or odd thing, though, was all of a sudden, Sark, when he couldn't get anything going with Quinn, decided I'm going to pull the switch and I'm going to put Arch Manning in there. Now, I didn't mind. I don't know about you, but I didn't mind him going to Arch. I didn't like it at the time. Like, why do it right before half? I almost looked at it. It's like, hey, go into halftime, say we're going to flush that half of football. We're going to bring Arch out. We're going to get this energy. But then he does that and then puts Quinn in. And I don't know. I don't ever feel like Sark reacts that way. And yet he did. And then it led us to one of the most crazy third quarters I've seen in recent history. It was crazy, nuts.
Oh, it was nuts. And we'll get that. I want to talk about the quarterbacks on both because it was not. I mean, you're talking about two quarterbacks who are projected first round caliber, who I know a lot of people tweeted this, lost a lot of money tonight. Carson Beck, this is now the second game in big time moments that he has turned the ball over, and he looked lost against Alabama. Yeah, he had a good second half, but looked lost against Alabama. It's just been a lot of mistakes this year. 23 of 41, 175 yards, 3 interceptions, and then Quinn, obviously redeemed himself in the second half, but looked lost once again. Looked lost early against Oklahoma. We kind of blamed it on, hey, he's just getting the rust knocked off from being injured. Sure. But neither quarterback look like a first rounder. Like, how disappointed are you if you're both fan bases knowing that neither of them were close to what expectations have been?
Yeah, I think it's two different things, right? I think for one is the fact of while I'm upset with Quinn and he didn't play great and had to go back and forth and didn't play better in that second half, I don't know who would have. I mean, like Aaron Murray at his prowess at your prime days. I don't know how much success you would have had with the way that Georgia's defensive front was just absolutely crushing that offensive line for Texas. I mean, there was I think 7 sacks. It might have been even more. I haven't looked at the last at the final box score, but he didn't have enough time and he was seeing ghosts. Arch Manning, I mean, that's the reason why they had to go to Arch is like, listen, we got to get a guy that could run the ball at least when the pocket breaks down because they couldn't do it. On the flip side of it, I know Tate Radlish is out there or is not necessarily back in that lineup at 100%, but Beck, those are bad throws that he makes. And I just don't expect that but think about this. You threw 3 interceptions. If I would have told you Carson Beck goes 23 of 41, 175 yards, and 3 picks, what do you think that final score would have been?
Oh, they would have dominated. They would have got dominated.
You would have thought that they got their ass kicked, and it was the opposite. And so we know the things that we know so far in this season is that outside of one quarter of football, Georgia's defense has been pretty damn good. And that's kind of what Kirby, I would imagine, is always going to have is hang his hat on.
Have they, though? I don't know if I can say they've been really damn good. Like, versus, was it Mississippi State? I don't think it was anything special. They gave up a lot against the Bulldogs in that game. Like, it's been good. And I think maybe I'm caught in the trap, PB, of comparing the defense to what they've been in years past, which has been the best defenses in college football in those 2 years they won the national championship. And they're not there, but they haven't been able to get after the quarterback. They've given up explosive plays in the past game, multiple games now. Yeah. I mean, even go back to Clemson, like Cade was off in that game. There were plays to be had that Clemson didn't execute. So, like, to me, this was finally the first complete game I saw from the defense where Michael looked elite. Jalen looked the same way Jalen's looked all year. Obviously, Malachi was making tackles, and then the DBs were actually making plays on the outside. So, like, this was the most complete game.
Michael coming in is such a different changer. He's such a game changer that comes in. He had the 2 sacks, the 2 tackles for loss. And more importantly, it's kind of like the whole Will Anderson, Dallas Turner thing. It's like when he goes off, someone else is going to have another opportunity. And then whenever somebody else has that opportunity, then Williams goes off. So it's kind of like it's like this, this flywheel of success. And then the cornerbacks were solid. So, I mean, overall, listen, this was dominant. And I mean, now the question is, I'm trying to figure it out today. After what happened with Alabama, Tennessee, and I'm sure we'll get to that. Who in the hell do you think is going to the SEC championship game? I've got no flipping clue.
LSU's rolling right now too. I mean, I'm going to go something you said real quick though. Texas's O-line, because we went into the season saying like Texas has a great O-line, and Alabama has a great O-line, or Tennessee does, and Georgia does, and all these teams, and none of them have, when the moment has come, has executed. Texas has the most experienced offensive line in the country. They've looked the part. They're at home. They're not dealing with crowd noise, and
they had no shot.
They couldn't run the ball. No shot. Is Georgia that good now all of a sudden at defensive line, or was this we overhyped Texas's offensive line?
You know what we're talking about here is the same thing, and I got to get up in 3 hours to talk about NFL football on ESPN radio, and what it reminds me of NFL weekends. It reminds me of watching, a Chiefs and Ravens game and going, all right, that game played out that way. Is that the truth? Is that what you're going to see? Or is just the parity level that good right now in all of college football? I'm not even going to say the SEC, but in this college football right now, it's little any given Saturday. Because I don't know if you play that game 10 more times the way I saw it, Georgia wins that game probably 7 or 8. I mean, it was that dominating of a win. It wasn't like kind of coin flip kind of game. I mean, that was a welcome to the SEC moment that Texas truly had. They hadn't really had that as of yet. And my goodness, it was, absolutely maybe the most impressive thing I've seen so far this season.
All right, let's go to the third quarter. And the obviously it was a pass interference. I think everyone, or was not, excuse me.
It was not a pass interference.
It was not. It was not a pass interference. But the call on the field was a pass interference. Fans lose their shit. Bottles and other things and cans get thrown on the field. And the ref picks up the flag, which is, I've never seen that happen for my entire life of football. I don't think anyone
I'm literally on a phone call. I was on a phone call with a friend and we're talking and I go, hold up. And I see Kirby Smart doing the finger wag right at somebody and he's about to lose it. And I'm just like, there's no way they're turning around. I haven't seen it. And again, I texted some people in the league office. I'm sure that they were going to put together their response to it. And ultimately, I think that what they'll come out is say there was a mistake that had been made. I mean, like, I can't imagine at any point in the rule book that's allowed to be looked at, because guess what? If there wasn't that the people throwing the bottles and whatnot. If there wasn't that stoppage, do they even have that conversation? I don't know.
No,
Now, I everybody is going to be stupid on social media going, well, this is going to be the brand new way. If like you don't like a call, we're just going to throw a
I
bunch
hope
of
not.
stuff. That's not going to happen. They'll nip this in the bud. But it was a horrible call. Okay, the first call. Then it was a horrible overturn of the penalty, but they ultimately got it right, and it didn't play into it. Can you imagine at some point had it been flipped and Texas won that game?
Well, they ended up scoring a touchdown, so like all of a sudden it kind of felt like, oh my God, Texas is only down a score. Did the fans really, because of throwing bottles, give Texas an opportunity to maybe win this football game?
Was it Sherman that marched on Atlanta and like it would have literally been, the Georgia fans would have just gotten up there with the pitchforks and it would have been wild. It was a bad officiating game. The targeting was bad. The Alabama Tennessee it was a tough weekend for SEC officials and just college football officials.
When is it not a bad weekend for SEC officials? Last thing on both of them, then we'll hit Alabama, Tennessee real quick.
Yeah.
Where's Georgia and Texas in your mind, like ranking wise? As you watched Ohio State and Oregon a week ago, we've seen Penn State, we've seen LSU now all of a sudden look really good. We've seen Georgia look bad. We've seen Georgia look good.
Yeah.
We've seen Texas mostly look good until tonight. Like, are these both still top 5 teams? How far does Texas drop?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they dropped that far. In fact, it's almost more of like I wouldn't say flip, because you're not going to have Georgia be the number 1 team in the country with the loss, and while you still have Oregon being undefeated and some other teams. But, I still think that if you told me that these are 2 of the top 5 teams in the country, I'd probably say that. I can't disagree with that right now, because I do think the one thing is I was waiting to see who was going to be the playmaker for Georgia, and I don't know if it's Arian Smith. It's more probably going to be Trevor Etienne, and for him to kind of start running the ball, and that's what Kirby wants to win on. Frankly.
Need to.
Yeah. And I mean, I think and they don't have that offensive line continuity quite yet. But yeah, this is not hey, Texas is not back and they're a fraudulent team. I think they just ran into a buzzsaw that had a chip on his shoulder and was pissed off. And buddy, a pissed off Kirby Smart in a Bulldog defense is not something you want to go against.
I think most people were picking Texas. I mean, hell, I picked Texas to win the game. I do a Georgia show. Me and Noshawn Moreno, one of the greatest running backs in Georgia history. We both had Texas win this game. So like, even Georgia fans and fans weren't even mad at me. Like, usually if I pick against Georgia, fans are pissed. Like,
they
were like, we get it. Like, you have to do your job. Like, we're not even mad about it because like we don't even know if we can win this football game. It's like, I don't even think the fans were expecting them truly. Like, they wanted. I get, like, yes, Georgia fans wanted to, and they were hoping, but they were not confident going into Austin to win this football game. And that was massive.
But again, that first quarter, Aaron, that they got their ass whipped in T-Town, I think might come down to and ultimately be the best thing that could have happened to this team because they didn't fold in that second half.
Is it just an Alabama problem? Is it just an Alabama problem then now?
Well,
like, is this officially now like, holy shit, we can go into Austin, beat the number 1 team in the country? It is truly Georgia just can't beat Bama.
Guess what? They're not going to have to see him again because they won't see him in the SEC championship game. I mean, that's a perfect segue to see what happened with Alabama today. I mean, it is. It's very unlike. It's almost like we do this for a living. It's very unlike what happens with Alabama football. It was just the amount of penalties. And I can't remember, and I got to go back and look up it on college football stats, but I think that they were one of the most penalized teams in the SEC coming into this game. And I think they had 48 penalties for 9,043 yards. Like, I mean, it was just penalty after penalty after penalty. And it was just
15 for 115. Tennessee was 11 for 95. 26 penalties in the game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was not – I mean, it was just like a bunch of catnip and Adderall just thrown around and people rolling around, and it was not a very pretty game whatsoever, but it was highly entertaining. Like, you didn't know what was going to happen. But, I mean, Tennessee's defense was just kept them in that game, and that was the whole deal. Like, Alabama should have been up by 3 touchdowns at some point, right? They couldn't get this offense rolling. Nico looked lost. And yet Jalen Milroe continued to keep putting it, in the hands of the or the Volunteers. And that crowd at Neyland, can you imagine if there's going to be a college football playoff game in Neyland? Holy shit, buddy! I'm a diehard LSU fan, and it would be loud. I think Neyland would be I don't know. It would probably not be safe.
Well, Cole had a great clip he posted on his Cole Kubelik on his Twitter of the coach's copy. It was blurry because of how loud the crowd was.
It was like that.
Was shaking. that. So like, yes, the defense kept a minute and the crowd kept a minute. I mean, that was it because it felt like Tennessee had more opportunities to make plays, to score points. And Nico, and I tweeted this out, when you're a quarterback and you're playing not to fuck up, when you're playing not to make a mistake, you tend to overthrow the football because in your mind, you're like, oh, at least I didn't throw a pick. You're like, I'm going to put this in a spot where I know the defense is going to do it.
Joe Milton, buddy. He was,
yes.
I mean,
he was trying, but that's been him for the past 2 weeks. He's trying not to make a mistake, where the Nico beginning of the season was just saying, screw it. I see it. I'm letting it rip. And then second half, you started to see the old Nico a little bit, letting it rip, throwing the ball accurately down the field. The one touchdown was a freaking dime. So like, was this the game against Alabama where Nico goes in the locker room and says, I can do this. Like, I got the talent. I got the receivers. Like,
I'm not there yet. No? I'm not there yet because I did tweet during that game. I said, Nico has those guys open. He has to make that one throw because until he makes that one throw, until you connect, no one's going to respect it. It's like a 3-point or it's like a big in the NBA or college basketball. If they don't think you can hit the 3-pointer, guess what? They're never going to guard you out there. And that's what's happening right now, that no one's afraid that he's going to take the top off like Hendon Hooker used to do with Jalen Hyatt. So everybody kind of stacks the box a little bit more, and that's why they were struggling. I'll tell you what, Dylan Sampson's a son of a bitch. I mean, that kid, oh my God. 26, a 139, 2 touchdowns again. I mean, he's been putting up some monster numbers. And I think, we have to just look at Tennessee, not in the Josh Heupel offense. Tennessee is this is crazy to think about, a defensive team first, a running team second, and a passing team third. And I think in that order. Because
the plays are there, though. And I agree with you as of right now. That's it. It's a defensive team first, it's a run team first. But when you watch the tape, and then tonight's a perfect example, there are plays to be made in the passing game. And I just believe in my heart of hearts that Nico has the potential and the receivers have the potential where when it clicks and the confidence is there and they get to that point, then all of a sudden it's going to be more of an equaling balance on the offensive side of football.
Yeah, because then you have to respect it, and that's when they're most dangerous. I mean, that's why 2022 nobody could face them, because Hendon Hooker threw such a good deep ball. Right? Like and if you wanted to hit a quick slant, you could do it. If you wanted to run, you could do it. Like, and honestly, in a weird way, they're going to catch somebody. And if he gets that, and I got to go look at Tennessee's schedule right now, but you're sitting there, and I mean, they're up to like a 70% chance to go to the college football playoff. As I look at it, they've got what? They got a bye week.
Mississippi State,
Kentucky,
Georgia,
Mississippi State.
Vandy.
Yeah. I mean, and you're sitting there with what? One loss?
Yeah.
I mean, you beat all the teams that you win. You just did the Kentucky game. Do you see any kind of pulse in that team right now? Like, I don't necessarily see it. Mississippi State, they should beat Mississippi State. You lose to Georgia, and at Georgia is not going to kill you, because at that point they'll probably be a first or second ranked team in the country. Yep. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the game of the year for Tennessee right now is going to be at Vanderbilt, the fighting Diego Pavias in Nashville. But Tennessee, in my mind, as long as they wouldn't get blown out in Georgia, they win out, which I think that they'll be heavy favorites to do. I think they locked up a college football playoff spot for the most part tonight.
I agree with that. Flip it to the other side, is Alabama with a loss to now Tennessee and a loss to Vanderbilt. What are their playoff chances? Is it still, you win out, you're in, or and mix that with obviously your confidence that they win out too, based on what we've seen this season, because it hasn't been pretty for Alabama.
I mean, listen, I felt as an LSU guy, I was more worried about Arkansas and at A&M than I was about Alabama, because in Tiger Stadium, that game's going to be in Death Valley. LSU has been playing extremely well. Defense is getting a little bit better now that Harold Perkins, believe it or not, is not playing, and everybody knows their role. Caden Durham, now they have a rushing attack. Nussmeier's on point, and there's just this hatred, and there's blood in the water for Alabama. That's the fact of it. Like
Yep.
it's this crimson blood that everybody's kind of circling around right now, and they want to take it and while they're out. And listen, and Alabama still has Missouri coming up before that game. Now Missouri, again, barely got by an Auburn team that's not very good this week. So, I mean, you talked about it. Brady Cook was in the damn getting an MRI at a hospital, and he's like, screw it, I got to go play. Strange things happen in Como. We'll put it that way. But yeah, I think Alabama will have their third loss. I mean, this is the first time that they've had 2 losses before the month of November since 2007, right? 2007. It's just great. Go look at the SEC standings right now. Go look at on ESPN.com where you see it. We're halfway through the season, Aaron Murray, and Vanderbilt football is above Alabama football in the standings. And by the way, that's not because they're tied and they won the tiebreaker. They have a better SEC record than Alabama does.
2-1, the 2-2 right now. Vanderbilt has a better SEC record than Alabama. Jalen, let's kind of bring this home right now with Jalen, because obviously he had opportunities at late in the game to cement himself as a big time quarterback in big time moments and everything else you want, and maybe even jump back into Heisman because conversation, whatever it is, and he wasn't able to get it done. Won the play call on the 4th down with like a little whatever it was, screen pass was
fourth and 22.
What are we doing?
You had 2 minutes left or a minute 58 with 3 timeouts, and I'm like, Nick Saban legitimately is rolling around in his Mercedes, Ferrari, Home Depot ads, Airbnb ad grave right now to think that this is what Alabama football is. Like, we can't trust our defense, so we have to go for 4th and 22, and they run. Actually, believe it or not, the play was there. It was some type of screen pass. Well, if you go back and watch it, okay, I can't believe I'm the one saying, Aaron Murray, you got to go back, but you were watching the game, or you're doing your game. If Ryan Williams, the true freshman, makes a block, they actually spring the play. So he missed. He missed a pretty.
Like 3 defenders were right there to make the tackle.
You go back and look at the other. If you go back and look at the other side of it, when they ran not the all 22, but a little bit more of the aerial view.
Yeah.
The play was there, believe it or not, for him to get it. But still, 4th and 22 when you got 3 timeouts is just wild, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. But overall, Jalen, though, like, how far has he dropped in your mind from? I mean, that first half versus Georgia was as good as anyone I've seen play a half of football.
The fourth quarter in South Florida, right? Like, where all of a sudden they were down and like to Alex Golish's squad again, and all of a sudden they flipped the switch. Like, Alabama has the greatest like microwavable offense, but it's not sustainable right now. And I don't know if that's just teams are just showing him. He just makes some boneheaded plays right now, and it's I mean. It's just inexplicable, because to me, that's the one thing that they've been working on him with is like more of the intermediate throws and whatnot. But he just throws it in some bad spots where as soon as I remember like Brandon Harris and Jordan Jefferson as LSU quarterbacks, like when they would drop back, you're like, oh, dear Lord, like what is it? I can't watch what's about to happen. We're getting kind of to that spot with Jalen Milroe right now. And that's crazy to think.
You know what's crazy to think also, too, is the SEC was so loaded in quarterbacks to start the season. And now who's the best quarterback? Nussmeier in the SEC?
Yeah. I mean,
Diego? Is Diego?
Diego's just really efficient, right? He's fun to watch, and he's a character.
What quarterback is playing at a high level right now in the SEC?
If you're talking about running their own offense, right? If you're talking about running their respective offense, honestly, you're talking about Garrett Nussmeier, and you're talking about Diego Bobka.
That's it.
Jackson Dart he's had moments that didn't look good, but I mean, you're not going to say Brady Cook. I mean, he looked good in moments. I mean, DJ Lagway looked good tonight, but I mean, now
only one game.
I'm kind of curious to see now. I mean, and that was a Kentucky team that had the 3rd best defense in the country coming in. Remember? I mean, they were this total defense. They were solid. Now, again, Florida has Georgia, at Texas, LSU, and Ole Miss, which is just ridiculous. But I'm excited about that. But yeah, those are the only 2 quarterbacks right now that I feel like week in and week out, I know what consistency the meal's going to be.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It is a far cry from where we were to start the season. Obviously, Ewers tonight disappointing. So obviously the doubt now begins with him and what what does that football team do going forward? Does Manning maybe have more of an opportunity to get some more PT? So weird times in the SEC, but it's going to make for a great end of this month, November. SEC championship and playoffs. It is going to be wild, wild, wild. I love this new era of college football. It is fantastic. Well, PB, you get some sleep.
I'm going to take a nap.
Everyone go. Yeah, you go take a nap. You can get off. Appreciate you. I'm going to leave. I'm going to have a couple more comments for the people because I had to apologize about some things I said.
Oh boy, I love that. I love when you got to go.
You get said. Georgia fans listening, I did say that Georgia was going to lose. We never figured out what bet we were going to do. I told Noshawn he can shave his hair. He backed out of that one. I'm not shaving my hair. I'm going to be on TV. So we'll figure out something. But I apologize for all the fans who want me to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, but wait, don't apologize because that's not what you thought. There was a lot of people that thought that. Hey, if you learn anything, and especially in today's politics, you just double down. You should have tripled down. You just be like, you know what? If they play that game 9 times out of 9, like Hugh Freeze said, Texas wins that game.
Pull the Hugh Freeze.
Oh God! I know we won't even. That's a whole different snap. So all right, I gotta go to bed.
All right, get some rest. Everyone else, appreciate it. Y'all joining us tonight. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be back, T-Bob and myself, either tomorrow morning for a full weekend reaction show, or we'll be back Monday, normal time, 1 p.m. Eastern, for a full reaction show. So appreciate you guys once again for joining us here late night. Congratulations to the Dogs. Congratulations to Tennessee and everyone else who had a terrific Saturday. And we will see y'all later here on Snap. Have a good one.